Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my channel and to the podcast if you are listening to Find You Fall in Love. I really appreciate you coming today and listening. I don't know that I have really covered what I'm about to talk about on the podcast at all, and I definitely haven't on the channel, but we are starting a new series and it will be a once a month thing that I record and talk about. Um, but I really think that it is important to discuss. And I'm a little nervous, to be perfectly honest with you, because for a couple of reasons. One, I don't want to be one of those people who, um, what's the word? Here, let me just tell you what I'm doing first, and then we'll cover why it makes me nervous telling you all this. One of my big goals over the next 5 to 10 years is to not only become financially independent myself, but also to help other people become financially independent. And bonus points if you are an entrepreneur, because I think that adds another level of complexity to it, and another challenge level to becoming financially independent. Okay. The reason that I am passionate about becoming financially independent myself and helping other people, especially women, become financially independent is because I know for me that I have not depended on my husband, but really have not thought through what would happen if something happened to him. And, kind of living in this idea that he's invincible and that he could never get sick, or, like just that deluded idea that nothing could possibly happen to him and that we would be fine, regardless. And obviously, that's ridiculous. And it's entirely possible that something could happen to him that would make it so that he could not work. And while, yes, if something dramatic happened to either one of us, we would get disability and that would help pay the bills. Um, A, it's incredibly hard to get disability. Generally, you have to apply for it like 5 or 6 times in order for it to actually go through. And they make the process so damn hard that a lot of people just give up, um, especially if they don't have help with that process. And so I just don't, and it can take 6 months or more in order for your back uh, disability to kick in. And we right now could not live on, my husband currently gets disability from the Army, because he was in the Army for many years. And we couldn't live on the disability that he gets from the Army. There's no way. Like, it wouldn't even cover our house payment, or our any it wouldn't cover hardly anything. It would literally cover his child support payments and his truck payment, and that's it. And then the rest of our lives would have to be handled ourselves. So, in thinking about that, in my anxiety brain goes into overdrive sometimes, and I had that thought a couple months ago, and I went, "Oh my god." Um, If you can hear the plane, I apologize. So I've decided to chronicle my journey to becoming financially independent. And I'm a little nervous about that. A, because sharing how very little I'm making right now, really feels very vulnerable. And when I start to do better, sharing how much I'm making is very vulnerable. It feels really vulnerable. And I grew up in a household where we didn't talk about money. So there is a little bit of my own struggles coming into play. And there's a little bit of just money mindset stuff that I have to work through. In addition to that, I'm going to teach you or talk to you about what is working really well for me and what is not working well, or where I may have slacked off or failed. And the idea of putting my failures out into the open, or my successes out into the open for everyone to look and think and analyze, is a little anxiety inducing. So that's where I'm at with that. But, and also, when I say I did X, Y, Z and it works for me, I don't want anybody to think that it's necessarily going to work for them. I'm just simply going to be sharing my experiences and what I did. And I have not been financially independent in a long time. When I was single and living by myself, I was mostly financially independent. I lived off of my bonuses and my income, with just a little bit of help from my parents. Not much, not enough to really write home about. And that is stressful. Like this idea that I've never actually fully been financially independent. I have paid off massive amounts of debt with bonuses and taxes and things like that. But I've not ever done everything on my own. And that is really scary to think about what it's going to take of me in order to make that happen. And it's scary to think about how this is going to impact my health. For those of you who have been listening to the podcast, I'm not super duper well. I'm currently trying to figure out again what's going on with me. And potentially it's fibromyalgia. I pretty much have diagnosed myself with that because everything else comes back negative and every test that I take comes back normal, and yet I am still struggling immensely, and I don't have a ton of energy, so I don't even know if I can work 25 hours a week. But we're gonna find out. And I mean, I have done that before, but once the school closed, I was very sick for a really long time. So my worry about all of this is I really don't know what that looks like. However, I tell clients all the time that we're going to grow as we go. And so I'm going to put my faith where my mouth is and trust that I can grow as I go. Just like you can grow as you go. And so while my podcast is not about business generally, I think that this is about I think one of the most influential personal journeys that you can go on is becoming independent, whether that be from a relationship standpoint and not to being codependent, which we've talked about extensively, to now that I have achieved that, right? I love my husband and I want him with me, and I would like him to be here, and I enjoy us being a family, and I need him to a degree. If something were to happen, I know that I will be fine. Whereas 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, I would not have said that. I would have said, if something happened to our relationship, I don't know what I would do. And so I have come a long, long way as far as that goes, to become independent and know that I will be okay regardless. And I would have told you then that I would have figured it out, but it would have taken me a really long time to figure it out. And I don't feel that way now. I would figure it out pretty quickly. That I would be devastated and sad, but I would figure it out pretty quickly. Um, but now that I've achieved that, right, I've healed my trauma enough to not be codependent. It's time that I heal my trauma with money, and it's time that I heal my relationship with money, and heal my inability to receive, because that is a huge thing for me. So within this series, I'm going to be sharing a lot of information, but I'm also going to be giving you prompts. So you will have journal prompts. If you're not following me on Instagram, I would highly recommend, because that's where all the journal prompts will be. If you want to follow this series specifically, I would highly recommend that you get on my email list. If you are already on the podcast email list, I'm going to be sending out another email that asks specifically if you want to hear about this particular topic. And get all of the information that goes along with that. And I hope that you'll stick around, because I really think that this is key. It is leading towards something. I'm not sure what yet. I'm just kind of, this popped in my head, and it has popped in my head like 5 or 6 times over the last 1.5 to 2 years, probably even longer. And come along for the ride and see my successes and my failures. And, every month I'm going to be brutally honest with you about what's happened, how much I've made, whether it was a profit or a loss, depending on my budget and all of those things. If you are not familiar with how to budget and all that jazz, you can totally find more information on the YouTube channel. I'm going to be putting out a video about business budgets, and I will do a separate video that is all about your personal budget. And also, within that, there will be a business budget conversation, because again, these topics really are for entrepreneurs. But if you are not an entrepreneur and you have no desire to be an entrepreneur, you can still get quite a bit of information, quite a bit of good info, because I'm going to be talking about my own personal experience. So I hope that you'll stick around. I hope that you have an amazing day. I am going to go enjoy this cool weather, and I'll talk to you all later. See ya. Bye.